Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are back in a very busy Phoenix pub on Oxford Circus, so there might be a little bit of activity in the background. Things are being installed that we have little to no control over, to be honest with you. But look who's in the building. Sam Obaseki making a guest appearance on Sunday Vibes. How have you managed this?
I don't know, international break, you know what I mean? You know, a few changes needed to be made, you know, a few players getting rested, so, you know, it makes sense for me to be here.
I don't know, but the A team's not available. The B team, not available. So we've gone to the C team.
I'm not going to have that, to be honest, because I believe I deserve to be in that B-A team, and I'll prove it today.
The B/A team?
Yeah.
I respect it.
Okay.
I respect it.
We'll see.
We are obviously going to be talking about England today, ahead of the World Cup. It's an international break, and there's been no Premier League football for like 2 weeks properly now, has there? Well, actually, it was some last weekend, but you know what? There's little to else to talk about. So we are focusing on England today, and we are picking our starting 11 for the first game of the World Cup, aren't we? And we're doing it based on mainly this season and what we're looking at right now. And we're doing it based on what we would do, not what Southgate will do, because we all know Southgate is going to play a back three. He's going to play Harry Maguire. I don't think any of us are going to be playing a back three today, are we? No. We all agreed that the back four suits this England squad the best.
Yeah. Basically that. I mean, like, I understand the back three as like, look, you danced with the one that brought you, and that one got them to the final of the Euros last year, and everybody knows it now. It's also a more common setup in English football, so you can kind of rely on it. And to a certain degree, setting out just not to get beaten in international football, in knockout football,
is the goal.
Is quite a sensible thing to do.
Yeah.
And England, even when they haven't played well, have generally been quite hard to beat. However, it's about what you want to see from the side as well. And England do have the talent now to play in a more expansive way. They have the talent to go out and impose themselves on teams. And other teams might try and counter the way they know England play by essentially sitting off and saying, we will play for extra time and penalties, or we will try and hit you with set pieces. We don't care, which means that England do need to at least have another gear. They need to be able to control a match. They need to be able to press. They need to be able to disrupt sides. So that's part of my rationale for going to a back four. But also, I need to be clear here. I don't care about England. I don't even know if you care about England.
No, I do. You know,
sometimes you're an England supporter, sometimes you're a Nigeria supporter. Yeah. If they played each other in the World Cup final, who are you rooting for?
Nige, unfortunately.
So you're a Nigeria fan then?
No, but that's just the reality. Like that's my heritage. But you know, England, I want them to do well. But at the same time, I do agree with Pat. I think a back four.
You just want Chelsea players to win the World Cup. That's
I do, to be honest. But I think a back four makes sense in terms of us getting to the latter stages of the Euros and the World Cup. You see Croatia and Italy. In those games, you saw moments of us being able to impose ourselves, and it's like we just stopped. And I think going into this tournament, we might have to just switch it up a little bit. And I think Southgate is most likely not going to, because you know the system that he plays in has worked for him. It's got him to the latter stages of these tournaments. But I think, like Pat said, the ability of the players that we have going forward, might as well get one extra on, you know what I mean, to just impose themselves going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see more talent on the pitch, basically, for England in forward areas. Obviously, what has worked for Southgate classically is going to continue throughout this World Cup. We saw him try and play a 4 recently against Hungary, didn't we? And you know, got slapped 4-0. And I do slightly worry that 4-0 will see Southgate go even more conservative at the World Cup, especially if he gets a couple of bad results in this international break, either against Italy or Germany. I can very much see him going more experienced, 3 at the back, another defensive midfielder in there. But I'm hoping he doesn't. So we're all going for 4 at the back. Should we start with our keepers?
Also, just to say about that Hungary game, like, everybody's whining about it. Yeah. But I think that's actually stupid to put pressure on and basically say, don't try this again.
We're a tournament team now.
You absolutely, but that's exactly what you want to use games outside of tournaments for, right? You want to use them to try out different stuff. Like that's where you attempt different setups. That's where you try different tactics, because that's how you learn for a tournament. And Sam's absolutely right. You need to have that Croatia game particularly, you saw England kind of get rattled, put back on their heels, and then they didn't have another plan. Well, Southgate does need to develop that other plan, because you can always give up a freak goal to a smaller side. You can't then in that situation just kind of like pass it around, especially when you've got talent like Kane and Saka and Foden and Sterling and Bellingham and Rice. people expect more from those players, and rightly so.
Yeah. Let's go to the goalkeepers then. And this is a tap-in for me. I think it has to be Pickford.
I agree.
Why?
I pick Pickford as well.
I think Pickford is the best shot stopper in England at the moment. I think his distribution has gone from strength to strength. I think classically the argument against Pickford has been he's much better for England than he is for Everton. Well, I think this season he's been one of the best goalkeepers in the league for Everton. He's rescued them numerous times, bailed them out of a host of situations under Frank Lampard, and if it wasn't for Jordan Pickford, I think Everton would be comfortably a relegation threatened side, especially towards the back end of last season. If you put all of that positive form together at a club and domestic level and amplify it whenever he puts on the Three Lions shirt, I think it's just a shoe-in to play Pickford in goal.
Do you think he's a better shot stopper than someone like Pope? Because I've got Ramsdale in there, but I'm not going to argue it on the basis of shot stopping.
It's very close between him and Pope, but I think he is a long way clear of Pope with his distribution skills. Pope is like the Poundland Courtois. That's what I like to call him. Like he is like his physical stature allows him to make saves other goalkeepers wouldn't. What is he, 6'6", 6'7"? Whereas Pickford is making saves that I think are just like extraordinary because he is a slightly diminutive size. So maybe that goes against Pope a little bit, just because you think, oh, look, that's an easier save, when realistically it's not. It's just because he's so tall and so imposing. I think he's a fabulous keeper as well. He would definitely be in my three, but I'm going Pickford for the distribution and the shot stopping combined.
Yeah, I've gone for Ramsdale. I mean, he has not been in form as good as Pickford's when it comes to shot stopping this season, though. It's a very small sample that we're talking about Pickford's shot stopping over. Like last year, he was slightly below what you'd expect from an average goalkeeper, conceded slightly more goals than you'd expect from post-shot expected goals, which is not great. And I think that Ramsdale's distribution is so much better that I want to get him in. But again, my attitude here is, what do you want to see from this team? Well, want to see a more expansive style playing out from the back. And what Ramsdale does have is an incredible kind of personality. Like you see it when the way that he's willing to accept pressure on himself when Arsenal are playing in order to give players more space when he eventually does play it out. I really think that could benefit England at international level. But also I think Ramsdale's a more talented player. I still look at Pickford and I know he has been pretty good for England, and I don't think he's done anything to merit being dropped. But I do just look at him and I think this is a limited player.
Really?
I don't know. I don't
think it's good. I think you can talk about his distribution improving, but I still don't think it's good.
It's a bit hoofy.
Yeah, it is a little bit hoofy, but he does find a few passes where you're like, oh yeah, that was a good pass. I think you have that with Ramsdale. It happens more often because yes, he's a goalkeeper with better distribution.
But is that not because he's also playing in a better team who are in positions and set out structurally to be able to receive the ball in better areas than Pickford is, who's playing in a much more defensive platform?
But that's like saying one is good in a bad team. Okay, but you want to be a good team. And also, Ramsdale put himself into this Arsenal team when they weren't good at the beginning of last season, right? That's when he got into the side. And part of making them good has been him. I know what you're saying. Arsenal probably is easier to distribute in Arsenal than it is at Everton. But I think that Ramsdale kind of merits this call up, and he's about 4 years younger as well. Generally speaking, my attitude is make the team younger.
I don't think he's done enough to pit Pickford to that position. I think we spoke about this on Team Talk a few months ago, and I put Ramsdale in goal. So people might think, oh, you're switching it up.
You are flip flop.
No, but genuinely, at that point, I was thinking Ramsdale distribution is playing better as well. Pickford wasn't necessarily playing well. Everton were in that relegation zone as well. So it made sense at that point. But Pickford stepped it up this season. He's become a main guy, like you said as well. So I think it makes sense for Pickford to start. But Ramsdale does deserve a few shots here and there, especially in these next two games coming up.
Should we go to right back then? Because there's another sort of debate point here, isn't there? England have got a lot of talented right backs, to be fair. It's like a power position for us, isn't it? You've both gone Reece James?
Yeah. I think Reece James, not only this season, he's definitely improved in terms of his all-round game this season, but I think one of the biggest things for him, or the biggest things that people used to say, was his injury record and how sometimes he'll have a good 3-4 months and then he'll be off for a few weeks, and then that will affect their overall outlook on him. But I think right now, overall, defensively, going forward, on the ball, I think he is the best England right back. I think Walker probably has the most experience. I think he's He's a player that you can almost always expect a 7 or 8 out of 10. But at the same time, I'm not going to say he's been bad this season. He hasn't been bad, but he's had a few games where I thought his recovery's been a bit.
Newcastle.
Newcastle. He didn't look great, and that was against a player that St. Maximin is a quality player who will cause anyone trouble. I don't think he will cause Reece James that much trouble, but he will cause anyone a bit of trouble. Yeah. But in that game, I was like, right, I ain't seen Walker exposed like this. And I think James, like I said, he wouldn't necessarily have. I don't think he would have that type of game. I've never seen Reece James get exposed or have a moment where I'm like, this guy needs to step it up in training. So I think Reece James deserves a shout. I think Walker, knowing Southgate, he's going to play because he's one of their most experienced defenders.
I think Southgate will play him on the right side of the back three.
Yeah. I think both will play, probably.
Yeah, I think in Southgate's actual 11, you'll see Walker's right side of centre back, and then
I don't mind that.
Right wing back.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, I think I've gone for Walker in my back four. I just think that his defensive solidity and the cover he provides for his centre backs is vital at international level and like for knockout tournament games. I think you see the best of Kyle Walker when he's up against really elite opposition in those sort of like Champions League level games or like international games where a centre back pushes into midfield or there isn't midfield cover. And I know that we've talked about St. Maximin there beating him on that day, but the amount of times I've seen him bail that City team out when a ball is played in behind when they're playing a high line. I think England, the way I would want to see us play is with a much higher line, is with lots of the ball and lots of recycling and possession. And if that is the case, I think it's essential to have a player like Walker who is willing to sacrifice his forward ability to cover those centre-back roles. And I think that although Reece James is a stunningly good player, and I would definitely take him, I think that when he is at his best, he's in those forward positions, almost where Saka wants to play at times. When he's coming inside a little bit and coming at the back post, arriving late as that wing back, I don't know whether I'd want to see him sacrificing his game to just sit in and allow a fairly solid back four.
But that doesn't necessarily affect him defensively. Like I would understand that if he would struggle getting back, but I'd never really see Reece James struggling getting back. He knows how to go forward and then almost like decide, is this the right time? Is this should I join the attack? And like you said, Saka likes occupying those positions. But having another player, like you said, we want Southgate to play a bit more expansive, try something new. Keep the ball more, to create like the England team that we're used to seeing is not what everyone wants to see. We're expecting to see all of these players and just play exciting football. I know it's not that likely in international football, but I think with the players that we have and Reece James, he could be pivotal to us changing towards that style. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting for, I guess we've all got Saka right on that right-hand side. So at Arsenal, he doesn't necessarily have that attacking right back that likes to get outside and does. He's had Tomiyasu in the past, now he's got Ben White. How do you think that would work with Reece James getting outside? And would he take up space for Saka?
I don't think it'd be an issue. Saka has also kind of played in much more of a midfield way for Arsenal at times. Like he's also played on the left, but he's played in kind of a midfield three, and you see him coming inside more and more. Especially now you've got Jesus. You've got a less, I guess, static centre forward.
Yeah.
And Saka's goal scoring has improved over the last year or so, and that's because you see him taking up positions in the box a lot more. Think about that goal he scored in that game where we should have beaten Man City earlier this season. The ball is going into him, who's moved into the area towards the penalty spot, and that's happening more and more. So I don't think it's an issue. I think he's intelligent enough that you can say, well, this is the role that you take up when James comes on the outside of you, and then it goes kind of James, Saka, Kane, and then probably you have Bellingham breaking forward, and you have maybe Sterling on the left, or whoever it ends up being. I don't think it's really an issue. It's not like Saka really does want to play with chalk on his boots. He can do it, but if you can have Reece James there with his quality, then I want Saka moving inside, and I don't think it's like.
And he is that inverted left-footed right winger, isn't he? So it does allow him more space. I just don't think it's a problem. Yeah.
I just don't think it's a problem. I mean, or at least if it is a problem at first, it's something again Southgate has to solve. But I think this is a really important point, which is that we're thinking about this as a whole team. So. I agree with Sam with everything he said about Reece James. I think Reece James is a great all-rounder. With him, you get kind of 75% of the passing you get out of Trent, but you get much better defensive work rate. You get better pace. You get more aerial presence. and you also get more progressive running. He completes, I think, like nearly 2 dribbles a game, and Trent's at about a third of that. But this is why I've got Ben White on the right as the right-sided centre-back, because he's obviously been playing right-back so far this season.
So you think he's better linked with Reece James?
I think that Stones needs more cover.
Do you?
I think Stones needs more cover than Ben White. Ben White has been really good so far this season. You think about the game against Zaha at the beginning of the season. Generally speaking, he has not been beaten a lot, and he has got forward a decent amount. Plus, you get the passing out of him that you get from Stones. So, in my kind of setup, the idea would be that James gets to go forward, and then my back, the 3/4 of it over here, shuffle over, and then you've suddenly got a much more attacking line. And if you're playing James, as much as he can defend, as much as he can do all that stuff, you do want him in the final third. That is the place that he's exceptional. In this situation, I trust Ben White to be able to cover that zone, because if you're playing Stones there, I think you've got to ask either Rice to drop deeper, or you've got to keep that fullback in reserve. And I don't think the left side is as strong. I would rather keep the left back in reserve, so James can get forward. So that's my attitude.
Yeah. See, I've gone for connections in that right side. So obviously Stones and Walker, who play together very, very regularly, as they have done at the start of the season. I think he started every game so far this season, John Stones. I think he is maybe the most underrated centre-back in world football. I really think he's stunningly good, especially
But this changes from year to year. From year to year. Everyone's like, Laporte's City's best centre-back, the others are crap. Diaz is City's best centre-back, the others are crap. Stones is the best centre-back.
And right now, I think he's massively underrated. I think in the past, he's gone through periods where people have said he's better than he is. Now, as we stand right now, I think in that City backline, he's their best centre-back.
I think it's because he's gone through that period where he was overrated and he was underperforming for City. He was in and out of the team, and then now he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet. So Pep clearly
and he's versatile. He can play at right back. He's played at right back for the last couple of weeks, or at least last week, definitely, when Akanji came into the centre-back position and Walker was injured and they dropped Stones out at wide right. His ability on the ball, obviously, there's no point talking about his pass accuracy, really, which I'm sure is like 92, 94%. It's up there. But that's because Man City are just like retaining the ball and rotating the ball so much. However, I still think that defensively, he's like really strong aerially. Like, he's partnered alongside not the biggest centre-backs in like Ruben Diaz, and often he is asked to go in and win balls aerially against very physical centre forwards in the Premier League. So I just think Stones for me is England's best centre back.
Yeah.
And therefore I would pick him. And I think the fact that he has a partnership with Walker on that right side of the defence makes it even stronger.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, obviously, are we going to go into the
but I've got Ramsdale in there, so like it's
You've got a partnership with White.
A similar argument. And also Ramsdale is better at claiming high balls into the box than Pickford is over the last couple of seasons. That's been true. So like I worry a little bit less about. I also worry less about it because this England side is a big side.
It is.
When you're defending set pieces, like Kane is phenomenal in the air. Rice is big. The other centre back I've got is good in the air. Reece James is really underrated in the air. Like,
so is Kyle Walker.
Yeah, you've got a lot of presence there.
Yeah. One player we haven't mentioned yet is Trent. I think people will just be wondering why we don't pick Trent.
He's just not going for me. I think he's
not going
to the World Cup.
He's not going to the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't think he goes. In my opinion, I think the right back the right backs that should be going, or that I would pick, would be Reece James, Trippier, and Kyle Walker. Even picking 3 right backs is a bit techie, yeah. But I think Trent, for all of the qualities that he has going forward, I'm not sure that he is the player that would make sense in this England squad. Because, like I said, going forward he's great. Defensively, he's been exposed countless times. Like, it's not even a one or two situations.
The midfield has been a mess for Liverpool, and he doesn't have Fabinho, and he doesn't have Henderson pulling into those positions.
He doesn't.
Not necessarily though, but also what I was talking about, James, in terms of the quality he has going forward. Yes, I would say Trent tips him going forward, yeah, but
his delivery, definitely.
His delivery is amazing, but I don't think that's worth him going just for his delivery. Like, last 10 minutes, are we going to say Reece James or Kyle Walker starts and then we're going to put Trent on? I just don't see it happening. Like, I don't see him coming playing games and saying, yeah, we're going to go all out attack, so Trent has to start. I just don't think that's realistic.
I have to say, I think it is stupid to take 3 right backs. Like,
especially if you've got someone like White,
yeah,
or if you take someone like Justin, who can play both
sides. And if you're maybe taking Trippier as left back, you know, England's left backs are so out of form at the moment. You might have to take Trippier as left back, which he can then fill in at right back if the worst happens. You've got 2 injuries to right backs. It'd be unheard of anyway. And yeah, I kind of agree. I think that especially the way Southgate wants to play, I don't think there's any point taking Trent if you're going to play right wing backs or as a right centre back. You don't fit either role. And I think if you're playing a 4-2-3-1, which I think most England fans probably want to see, with Rice and Bellingham as the holding midfielders, and then maybe Mount or Maddison or Foden in that 10 space, I don't think that works for Trent either. I think Trent needs a 3-man midfield with a sacrificial lamb basically on the right hand side, like Jordan Henderson or somebody of that realm who goes, when Trent's in that area, I'm going to sacrifice and drop into that right-sided defensive position, and Fabinho does the same. I don't think Bellingham is going to want to do that.
Saka could do it, but then
is that what you want, Saka?
Well, no, but I'm saying like he could do it.
Yeah, I think it doesn't quite work for the 4-2-3-1. I don't think it really works for the 3 at the back either. So, and I don't think there's any point taking 3 right backs. So, I would also be on the verge of leaving Trent out. He could put together a brilliant run of form between now and the end of the season, though, and change all of that.
It's also, you don't want to talk about... I don't really like talking about body language and stuff, but you do look at Trent recently, and I think this guy doesn't look like he deserves to go. Like especially in the Napoli game and the United games, the way he reacted to people going past him. I don't think you look at him right now and you're like, right, you're playing knockout football. You desperately need everyone to be on it and basically trying as hard as they can. Is he going to try as hard as he can? Because I know that guys like I know that Saka will. You know, there are guys like that who are gonna absolutely give everything to try and help you win. But people like Trent and to some extent Grealish, you don't quite have the same faith that they're going to be there for you when you need them. At least right now. No, but right now...
I hear what he said it in a harsh way, but if you see the body language that Trent's had in the last few games when players have gone past him,
it's nuts.
And obviously you're going to see the compilations. It happens all the time with every player. But with Trent, it's like they go past him and it's like he's not bothered about the second phase. It's like, fair enough, any defender can get beat. Like, we've seen it happen countless times. Yeah. But it's the standing there and watching. And it's not just one game or two.
He's always been quite a laid-back player, Trent, hasn't he?
And that's fine.
And when he's playing well, that's fine. But when he's not, everybody has a go at him.
But that's fine. But that's what I'm talking about. It's like going forward, you are great. Everyone knows you are one of the best fullbacks going forward. But defensively, that's always been a question mark. He knows it. Everyone knows it. Klopp has spoke about it as well. But it's like he's not doing anything to prove anyone wrong. Like, get better defensively, or even just
look like you're trying.
Yeah.
He does look immediately better when Matip's there.
But it's also not unreasonable to say, okay, well, when it's going well, everyone's fine with it. Like, of course that's the case. Like, when he's in the team, you say his attacking output is so good that we put up with the fact that he's a little bit worse than we'd like him to be defensively. Not massively worse, but worse. Well, if the attacking output isn't there, or if it isn't so good that it's just helping them win games regardless, then you look at him and you say, well, what are you doing here? Like, you're not doing enough. And I think in knockout football, you do want people who are going to leave it all out on the field, and you want people who seem like they care, who are happy to be there. You know, we've talked about this with Man United recently.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need people who look like they actually care about how the team does. And when it comes to the World Cup, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that in the couple of months before the World Cup starts, people look like they actually care about their job.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Let's move on to the left side of England's defence, because this is a problem area for me. I think this is a real problem area.
But I think we might all be in agreement.
We've all got Tomori at centre-back, haven't we, as well as centre-back?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems impossible not to have him as your starting 11 when he's winning league titles and playing in probably the most tactically intense league in the world, or at least alongside the Premier League, the most tactically intense league in the world.
And I think it will be really unfair to not give him an opportunity, especially when there's other centre-backs that are not playing up to his...
And playing so poorly.
Yeah,
they're playing poorly.
They're not even playing...
They're
not at that level. And Tomori's been improving. He went to AC Milan on loan, signed for them, won the league. I'm not going to lie and say I watch him week in, week out, but the games I do watch, like, genuinely, I do question, like, right, like, how did this happen? Like, how was he... Obviously, I can understand the scenario around him leaving and everything, but It's the fact that he's improving week in, week out, defensively, winning headers, on the ball as well. And I think that was one thing that people are saying, can he do that in England, for example, or can he do that for England? And I think week in, week out, he's proven that he's getting better. He can play in multiple different systems because AC Milan are the type of team that have teams pressing them, have teams that sit back, so he's going to have to step into certain positions and then find balls out wide. And he's doing all of that very well. And like I said, your Maguires, I can't even think of any, Tyrone Mings, Cody, they're not playing to that standard at all. So to not give him the opportunity to start, especially when you've got Stones next to him, who I think he's the second most capped defender under Southgate, having that experience next to him, if it was a Ben White and Tomori, like I said in the other team talk, that would be a bit of a stretch. But Stones and Tomori, I think Southgate should give it a try, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tomori just like. I was watching a really interesting interview with Chiellini on, I think it was the Times or the Athletic, something like that, and he was talking about like Tomori's development over the last 12 months in the box, like his concentration levels in the box, and he was just basically saying like he thought he was like the most highly concentrated centre back in the league when the ball's in his own box. He's obviously a huge threat from set pieces as well, as we've seen for Milan. I think it would be bizarre not to start Tomori at this stage, given like the arguments have always been there that, you know, Maguire plays well for England and he's still Man United's captain. He's not playing for United. Like he can't get a game over Varane and Lisandro Martinez. And to be honest with you,
much better.
I think Lindelof's ahead of him in the pecking order at United. He's probably the fourth choice centre back at Man United right now. I don't see how he is staking claims to this England spot, despite the fact he's played well in an England shirt.
I mean, yeah, I don't have much of an argument. You definitely still take Maguire to the World Cup. I do think Maguire's an underrated defender now. I think he was overrated for a while. Now I think he's underrated.
Underrated in what sense though? Because if you look,
because people act like he's a donkey and he's not.
Okay, that's fair enough.
They do hammer him.
Yeah, they hammer him. Yeah,
100%.
100%. And some of the comments are unwarranted. Yeah, but if you look at just how United have been since the beginning of the season, and just look at Maguire was captain, first 2 games, lost. Yeah. He's now dropped, and everyone was saying, that might be a mad call. He's the captain, this is that. You've looked 10 times better without him playing. When he does come back into the team,
they haven't looked good.
They look much better.
You'd expect that to happen.
When he has come back into the team in the Europa League games, for example, still look a little bit shaky. Varane and Martinez are genuinely now the starting centre backs because United have realised, or Ten Hag has realised that.
But that's not a huge slight on Maguire though, because you're talking about France's starting centre-back and Argentina's potentially starting centre-back.
And a poor man's Saliba.
But that's
and a poor man's Zinchenko.
That's fine, yeah. But the reality is, going into a tournament, you can't tell me that he should start if this is his reality.
I'm saying Tomori should start.
Okay, or he.
But I would take
there should be take him, fair enough. But arguments for him starting and stuff, I just don't think that.
This is interesting because I seem to recall you being kind of positive about the possibility that Chelsea might go in for Maguire.
No, I wasn't. That is not true at all.
If he'd gone to Chelsea right now, you'd be like, this guy is amazing.
I would not. I was opposed to that, like, fully. I didn't want that to happen. And it's not that I don't rate Maguire. I think he's a decent centre-back. I think he's got attributes that makes him a good player, yeah. But for me, confidence-wise, and it doesn't even really need to be an argument because we all agree on it.
Confidence,
but I think
confidence is on the deck.
You can't. Southgate is putting a lot of pressure on Maguire right now because there's quotes of him potentially starting the next few fixtures, which we know is likely because of how Southgate rates his senior players.
Yeah,
but
he looks right in back 3.
A lot of pressure.
He does look like a different player in a back 3, and he's in there. But my issue with it is,
if your defence is bad and you're playing a back 3, it's not because of one centre back.
Yeah, he looks instantly better. I think I did tier list for this on Fridays. We need to talk, and I had him in trouble section. I think my issue for Maguire is that if he's going to play as the centre of a back 3, I think Eric Dyer is playing like markedly better. He's playing markedly better.
Talked about Gay
in a back 3. Every week.
I'd have Gay ahead of Dyer.
Maguire isn't playing a back 3 and isn't playing. Dyer's playing every week in a back 3 at Champions League level under maybe the best defensive coach in the entire league in Antonio Conte. So that would be a bigger worry for me for Maguire in the centre back role.
Let's move out of the defence, man, because we all agree on Tomori. We've all got Chilwell.
Yeah.
No one wants to put Shaw in there. Boring rubbish.
Yeah.
Tyron Mitchell, extremely defensive.
Yeah.
I like the guy, but no.
Left back is an issue, but there's no point discussing it because there's not any other options there. Midfield 2, we've all got Rice and Jude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot else.
What else do you do? Calvin Phillips' injury is a problem. It's like a real problem. If he doesn't recover from that shoulder surgery in time for the World Cup, we're looking at backups. Ward-Prowse and Henderson, probably.
Or dropping Mount into a deep midfield.
That shouldn't happen. But I think Henderson, Ward-Prowse. I think Ward-Prowse
deserves to go.
He deserves to go 100%. And I think he will be that next one called up if something disastrous was to happen.
I think he scored in his last 2 England appearances as well. So I think he's very much on the radar. You're not having Ward-Prowse at all, are you?
I don't think he's very good.
So who would you would have Hendo start?
I don't care.
Ward-Prowse
take who you want.
Got to be ahead of Henderson in your
ranking. Yeah, take him, sure. Sure.
And given how good he is from set pieces.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
But I think he's the sort of player who you do not want to be taken to a World Cup in the ideal world. He's an Upson. He's an Upson.
What do we think about Rice and Bellingham as a duo? Does that work?
Yes. I think it does.
It should. Come on.
Which of those two sitting in though? Because Rice now is really,
whoever's not going forward.
But that's what I'm saying. In this type of team, in a team that we're trying to play, I think Rice and Bellingham can interchange with that position. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be one player going forward. We've seen Bellingham do that very well at club level. We've seen Rice do it well at club and international level. So there's no reason for them not to interchange. But I think because of the way Southgate normally plays, he wants to have that one player. That one player that does it, and then he will have Phillips doing that at sometimes. But like realistically, you'd want the team or England to be fluid because they've got the players that can do that. So I think it would work perfectly, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean Bellingham has started the last 2 games against Hungary as well. 5-0 loss on aggregate, which I think is going to go against him in Southgate's thinking, which I don't think is rubbish.
But I don't think that's down to him, though.
You've got to give these players a chance to build partnerships. If Bellingham and Rice don't start these next 2 international fixtures, there's just no hope. Man. There's literally no hope. I give up.
I do see him playing Henderson. I'll be honest.
Because he wasn't even called up to the original squad. Henderson. He's only been called up because of Calvin Phillips' injury. So I'm not sure.
But in terms of just senior, I just think Southgate is a man that likes to trust his senior players and players that he knows can perform at a certain level. So I wouldn't be surprised if Henderson's put straight in. But I would want him to put Rice and Bellingham because realistically, going into that type of tournament against the midfielders we're going to be against, it's different level.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The depth in midfield is a problem for England.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you look at Spain's.
Well, it's not that many games,
weren't we?
It's not that many games. Like you go to the World Cup, what is it? 7 games
are then
if you get to
asking
the final.
Is Bellingham 18? 19
Yeah,
and a 22-year-old to play every minute of every game.
He's a regular starter. He has a shorter league season in Germany than other players, so he'll play slightly fewer games. I don't know, you've just got to kind of deal with it, and maybe it's an advantage there that it's in the middle of the season. But I'd say that if one person is generally sitting out those 2, it would be Rice. I think Bellingham is better at getting forward. He's been scoring goals recently. But if Rice sees an opportunity and bursts forward, then it's on Bellingham then to understand that he needs to drop in and protect the back line. And he can do it. He's put up decent defensive numbers. He's a good presser. It shouldn't be an issue. But not having Phillips there, who really is a fairly conventional number 6, that is a loss for England.
Yeah, I agree. What about in the attacking midfield role then? Bit of debate here, potentially.
Yeah.
I think you two have both got Mount.
So
I thought you had Foden.
See, I put because I don't.
How can you put a dash in what we are
say
making
pick
decisions?
now. Pick now.
This isn't sit on the fence vibes.
Pick now.
It is sit on the fence vibes.
It's not sit on the fence vibes.
You can't do
this
that.
is why you're beating.
You can't pick 12
okay,
men. You've been infected by Bowley, and now you think that you can play 12.
4-4-3. It doesn't work.
Don't disrespect Smino. I'd put Mount.
Don't disrespect.
I'd put
so you've got Mount.
Yeah, I'll put Mount.
Why?
I think in terms of his all-around game, because I think Foden, going forward, club level, he's been really good this season. He's had a few off games, but I think young players like Foden, Mount, Saka, we've seen them have
periods. Ridiculous this season.
Yeah, no, but I can't remember what game I watched him and I was thinking this isn't the Foden that I'm used to seeing. I don't know whether he wasn't being as he wasn't being as expressive as I'm used to seeing him when he comes on in the last 20 or so. But I think this season he's now one of Pep's main forwards, so he might have to play a bit different. But I think what Mount does offer the ball and what Southgate wants, and that's the thing. When I was picking this team, I was picking for myself, but I was also I was trying to like split what I would do and what I know Southgate would do. And I think Mount, Southgate trusts him to do that dog work, off the ball, pressing.
Execute a tactical plan.
Yeah, and defensively, his numbers are clear of Foden and a Maddison that we're obviously going to touch on as well. But yeah, that's why I'd play Mount. And also going forward, his creative numbers hasn't been that great this season, but last season he didn't start that great. He only had 1 assist in his first 8 games, and then he ended the season on double digits, goals and assists. So I wouldn't be too...
It's only 8 weeks to the World Cup though.
Only 8 weeks, which is fair enough, but that's the thing. Foden is one of those players as well that if we're going to use the playing for England thing, I've not really seen him play that well in competitive games. In a few friendlies, I've seen him score a few goals and assists. But
he started the first 2 games of the Euros and then was overtaken
and then he was
by Saka,
on the bench. He was on the bench and then he missed the final due to an injury. But even those games that he did play, like he didn't really offer that much. So
I just think that you've got to get Foden into the team. Like, he's that talented. Like there has to be a space for Phil Foden. And as much as I love Mount's tactical intelligence and the work he does off the ball, and he obviously makes players better around him, which is a vast underrated skill. So like he would obviously go, but I would start Foden in my 10 space, even though he doesn't classically start there for Man City. I just think the creativity and his ability on the ball in tight spaces, if we want to play this high line and we want to play with really cramming players back and controlling games, I think that's where Foden's at his best, in tight spaces. So I would have Foden as my creative 10 who can drift either side.
Is he? That's the thing though. I don't know whether it's an England thing, yeah. But I just don't see the same Foden like that. You know, the player that you're asking for and saying that.
But that's
he
because
would
we're playing
great.
a free at the back, we're playing deep, we're playing like in transition.
I hear it, but that's the problem though. Will he ever be able to thrive in this England squad?
Well, this is our England squad though. This is our England squad.
Yeah, in our England squad, then I can hear it. Like Foden, his creative numbers are incredible this season. He's above Mount and Maddison by far in terms of the chances he creates and stuff. But yeah, that's my only worry. Like, will he be able to fully express himself and be that player that we know he can?
Pat, where do you come down on the fence?
I kind of prefer Foden as a player in lots of ways. I think he maybe is the most talented player that England have. But he's not playing as a 10 this season.
No.
I think that England's creativity has been an issue for quite a while, and I think it's a bit weird to say let's solve it by playing a guy who's currently playing on the right as the 10. And what Foden has never done for Man City is be the creative player. Like the burden is on him to create stuff, and the guy I'm playing on the left isn't particularly creative, so it worries me a bit. In a way, to me, it's more like Foden up against Saka for the right wing slot than Foden up against Mount for the attacking midfield slot. Plus, with Mount, everyone who's ever managed Mount has picked him every game. Like Lampard, Mount. Southgate, Tuchel, and I know Potter will do it as well. And especially if you are a bit worried about your defensive kind of midfield zone with Bellingham there, I think Mount does give you more. Foden's still going to get a ton of minutes, but when I think about Foden at his best, I imagine him kind of on the right-hand corner of the box where he's facing up against the defender and they're scared.
Where Saka wants to be.
Exactly.
And I don't think there is space for Saka, James and Foden. I agree. I just think that I'm playing Walker slightly more reserved. Maybe that allows Saka to go a bit wider. Let's touch on Maddison as well, because he's got to be at least in conversation for a call-up at this stage, surely, because he's not getting in the wider squad, but we are potentially like thinking about him as being a starter.
No,
I wouldn't have him as a starter, but
I wouldn't have him as a starter, but he's getting violated now on the slide though. Like, what
do you mean?
Like, you can't, a player like him, you can't watch him. Like, I feel like it's rare for anyone to watch him and see his performances. Not even just last season, this season as well. Yeah, Leicester are not playing that great, but he's definitely been their spark. Yeah, to see those performances and say he doesn't deserve a call-up, especially when we're talking about players that aren't necessarily used to playing in those creative positions. You said that Foden normally plays out wide, right? Mount picks up similar positions for Chelsea as well, so they're not used to playing in that position. Yes, Maddison can drift to the left. We've seen his heat maps in games. He does do that often, but he also is very good creatively centrally. Do you know what I mean? And I think not picking him after having a great season last year. Sorry about that.
What?
after having,
Jesus.
you know, it's like having a conversation. Is it the Victoria line? Not picking him after last season. I think he got 18 goals and 12 assists last
crazy,
season.
you know, that's crazy.
And then this season, 2 goals, 2 assists, I believe, in the league. And it's not just the stats, because we can do that for any player, but it's the ability and the fact that he can make something out of nothing. I feel like you need a player like that. We're talking about Trent not going because you won't have that for a right back. But you will need that for a midfielder in tournament competitions where you're like, we need something creative. We need a player that can create nothing out of nothing. Maddison is that player. Even if he's just on the bench, like, pick him, bring him.
But that's where you've got Foden and Grealish for me. Like, I mean, I still think it's worth considering taking him, but and he's more of a like-for-like replacement for Mount. You're right about that.
I think for Bowen to be in there, though, I'd just, like you said, stick Foden out wide and then play Maddison in the 10.
Yeah, well, I mean, you definitely can do that. It just. I think Grealish is a guy who you say when a game gets stretched, he is the person who can produce something insane and who can drive the team on. Like, to me, Grealish is much more that guy than Maddison is. I think Maddison has been overperforming so far this season. I mean, he's at like something like 0.3 expected goals a game, man. It's like it's not particularly
for Leicester.
Yeah, it's not particularly good though. I don't know. I can understand taking him. I can definitely understand taking him. And, you know, I should stick to my same argument that you want people who can swap in for your first choice starters most easily. And Maddison is that guy for Mount among the England options. But if England needed a goal in the last 20 minutes and you were the manager, I'm not sure that he's the guy you turn to on the bench. I think there are kind of 3 or 4 people you turn to before you got to him. And that's not really an insult to him. That's more that I think, I've got Sancho, I've got Grealish, who are not starting. Like,
but Maddison,
I've got Foden, who might not be starting. There's 3 guys right there.
Than all of those players you just mentioned, except from Foden, I think you said last. But Sancho, Grealish, like I can hear them being in the team. You know, Southgate.
I don't think he is really.
But I think Maddison deserves a shout.
I think it's a bit of a mirage.
I think if you are, I don't see a reason not to be trying him in these pre-tournament fixtures.
Sure.
Like, especially in these Italy-Germany fixtures, I think it's really bizarre not to at least see what Maddison. If Maddison came into these games, scored hat-trick against Italy and 2 against Germany and slotted into a midfield 3 of Bellingham and Rice perfectly, we'd all be going, well, now he's got to go. But we're never even going to see it now. Yeah. Like, we've seen Mount. We know what we're going to get from Grealish.
No, I agree.
Like, I think it's bizarre not to take
I think we're all big fans of Maddison. I don't have an issue with him going. Like, I can't quite work out, you know, like how many spaces there are in the squad, really. But, like, I don't know. People are talking like he's had this phenomenal start to the season. He hasn't been that great, I don't think. I think he's been worse than last season.
Come on,
that's because Leicester,
yeah, like you can't just put that.
But Leicester's quality is partially down to their players, and he's one of their players. In fact, he's their key player.
No, have you seen them defensively? And
you can make this argument about almost anybody. You can make this argument about Sancho. You make this argument about Mount.
You can't make this argument about Sancho though, because
Chelsea have been
embarrassing.
I mean, how bad have Chelsea been?
Sancho's been much better than last season.
Worst team in London, probably so far this season.
Chelsea haven't been great this season either. I don't mind that, but I'm talking about Maddison. Like, defensively, Leicester have not been good enough. Yeah, Maddison going forward and what he's asked to do for the team. Yeah, and not even just going forward. I'm talking pressures. I'm talking blocks, tackles. He is still doing well for them. Like, he's not lost his head where you're thinking, he's just performing for himself and all of this stuff. And even when he comes out to talk about the games, like, you can tell, like, as a person in general, he just seems like a good player to have in that camp. It's regardless of what he is on the field.
Take Milner then.
Let's move on to our front three.
I do know what he's saying.
Let's move on to our front three, shall we? Because we've all got. I think the front three.
We've got the same.
To be
we've got the same. Yeah.
I don't see a world in which it's not Sterling, Kane, Saka.
Nah.
Stack is the best right winger in the country by a distance, I think. Sterling's the best left winger and is amazing every time he plays for England. Kane is the 3rd best striker in the world.
But if Sterling got injured, I think then you'd actually be well advised to swap out potentially both Saka and Sterling.
What, and play Sancho and Foden?
I don't know, because then
that would be a weird switch,
actually I don't know. I suppose you got Rashford, but we were talking about this before we started, right? Which is that the entire England team, they feel like they all want the ball to feet, and Sterling is actually the only guy who is a little bit more selfless in that regard. He's the guy who's going to constantly try and make runs, constantly try and do it, and the hope is you can find him. Well, if Sterling gets injured, then suddenly you've got, again, a load of guys who want the ball to feet and are just going to pass it round in front of the back line.
Could do that.
Rashford. I forgot about Rashford, but I guess I was thinking if Sterling went out and maybe the only guy you had available was someone like Bowen's going to play off the right, you might need to have your creative player, ball to feet guy on the left, and in that case have
and Rashford's playing well.
Maddison.
Yeah,
Rashford's playing really well. He's getting in behind. He looks dangerous again in transition. So I think he is very, very much in contention for a World Cup squad place. So our 11s are going to be on screen now. By the way, you can let us know in the comments below who you would pick for your England World Cup 11 as things stand right now. Forget about what Southgate will do. What would you do? Let's rattle off a couple of quick fire questions then before we go home. Mr. Random AF Guy, great name, says, are Spurs good? Because I can't really tell. Results and data say one thing. Eye test says another.
The eye test is horrible, man.
It's horrible.
It's not
horrible.
good. But this is Conte ball to a certain extent. Like, there will be periods where
was it this ugly though?
Conte's Chelsea weren't this ugly.
No, it wasn't this ugly. But I won't lie and say that Spurs don't have periods in games where I'm like, oh no, like they look decent. Do you know what I mean?
When they counter-attack.
The game. But that's what he wants. Like, I feel like with his Spurs project here is to win with what he's got, any means necessary. Look at Højbjerg, for example. Yeah,
playing really well.
He's playing crazy.
Yeah.
Dyer as well. Like these players, we knew that they were good and they have potential to improve, but I feel like Conte's got like the better versions out of them. Even players like Sessegnon, I saw an interview of him talking about like the demands that he has on the players and how they've all known that they need to come this season and like do something serious. And I think they've not lost a game in the league. They're not playing that great. So only way is up really. Only way is up.
They're giving up a lot of shots.
Yeah.
I think where are they? Fifth bottom?
They're fifth bottom. So they're currently taking about 16 shots a game, but they're giving up 15, which is so many. I mean, the teams below them are like Forest and Bournemouth and stuff. Like, that does concern me, because if you're going to be... The good sides just don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, as in, it never happens that a good side gives up that many shots. So the two options here are Spurs are actually good and they stop giving up as many shots, or Spurs aren't actually that good and some of those shots start going in. Because if you give up 15 shots a game, some of them are going to go in, and the question's going to be then... Can Spurs create when they're not basically counter-attacking? Is it possible for them? Maybe it is, but right now they look like they kind of have a plan A, and that's sort of it. And I guess the worry is how they change it up. Like, I can't tell. I still think they are good. You know, like, even though the shot situation isn't good, the XG situation is. It's about fourth best in the league. But I worry about the shot situation because it reminds me of Emery. You know, when Arsenal were just giving up loads of shots but kind of still winning games. I think, I think the Spurs team is a lot better than that. But I'm sort of waiting for this to start making sense, because even when they won against Leicester 6-2, they gave up so many shots to them. No, not at all.
Son just dragged them out.
Yeah. Scores 2 world-class goals and then it's like done. But I don't know. There's something there that's not quite right, and I don't think Conte will be happy with it. So I do back him to fix it, but I'm not quite sure why it's not working right now.
James Wayne says, who was better, Rivaldo or Steve McManaman?
That's because you, man, you and Hamill
basically, no, I wasn't arguing with Hamill. I literally tweeted it just to wind Hamill up.
Yeah,
and then Hamill has like gone on like a rant about Rivaldo being better than Steve McManaman. Obviously, Rivaldo is a better player than Steve McManaman. I just said
was
that
he though?
You know, he won 2 Champions Leagues.
Yeah, he won more Champions Leagues.
Rivaldo didn't win a Champions League.
Ballon d'Or.
So?
Who cares?
Individual player.
But we're talking about the team, weren't we?
No, we were.
Yeah, we were.
That
was the whole tweet.
Oh, yeah, because he could have signed him for free or something, right? Oh,
and also, Barcelona will be happy that they missed out on McManaman.
And your quality as a player is not just about how you are as an individual. It's about how the whole team plays.
Definitely. But if you win a Ballon d'Or, like, no one can chat to you.
Nobody's denying Rivaldo is a better player than McManaman. But
no, McManaman.
I'll be honest with you, I tweeted literally to wind Hamill up, and it does seem to have worked.
McManaman all day.
We'll do a couple more then. In a Royal Rumble, which Premier League manager wins? That's from Run for 3 Strun. Classic answer for this was always Daichi, wasn't it?
I know, it's difficult now.
He's out the window now.
Who is there? There must be someone. Cooper seems like quite rough and tumble. He's got nothing to lose, has he?
I feel that
He's
Ten
not
Hag's
gonna be
got
worried
I feel
about
like
getting
Ten
punched in
Hag's
the
got a
face.
mean streak to him, you know.
He's old though.
Man will just
He's got that
swearing
jaw,
on.
it's like-
Yeah,
he always looks like-
yeah.
Secretly old.
Nostril.
I'll say Conte though.
I
have
don't
to-
think Conte's tough at all.
Actually, yeah, that
Do
handshake.
you really
that
think
handshake
Conte's
threw it
tough?
for me.
I know what Tuchel. I was like,
handled
Tuchel
him
might
still,
actually
yeah.
kill this guy.
Yeah,
Gary
Tuchel
O'Neill looks very wiry. Like he looks like the sort of guy who's been in street fights. Gary O'Neill.
I was literally about who is that?
Yeah, he's the Bournemouth manager.
Yeah,
He's
I
in
know.
street.
I realised that, but I was like, who's Gary O'Neill?
Marcus, no.
I think it actually might have to be like a Conte still. There's no.
It's definitely not Conte. It's
No,
definitely
but
not
he would kick
Conte.
the hell out of Conte. He sits
Klopp
so
is
far.
at least
on it
big.
Like that,
He's so
bro.
big.
Klopp's not on it like that. I
He's
tell you
so
that for a
big,
fact. You see
Klopp.
the way he stands in the halfway line, man. He's not trying to be intimidating.
You know,
massive, man.
Gerrard actually is. I reckon
Gerrard, I
quite
can hear
tough.
that.
Yeah, Gerrard.
Gerrard's
Lamps as
quite
well,
tough.
though.
Gerrard's been in a few screens.
Lampard
Don't
get winded. After about 20 seconds, he'd be like, he'd have to go over to Liverpool so he could borrow an inhaler.
Final one then. Personal question. Who's your favourite Streets Won't Forget footballer?
Oh God, this is such a you question to have put in.
Did you put this in?
No, it was
Yes,
someone
you did
asked
put this in.
it.
Yeah, but you put it in. You chose it.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
did.
name tag with it, Sam.
Is there not? Someone definitely asked it.
I know somebody asked it, but
Sorry,
this is such a
whoever
you
asked it.
question to have chosen. Come on then.
So that's it for another episode of Sunday. Sounds about to say Adel Tarab.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
We're all in
Tarab.
absolute shock about that one. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a comment below with questions for next week's episode. Hit subscribe, hit the like button. Is there anything you want to shout out, either of you?
No.
The Defoe interview, actually. Yeah, go watch that.
Yeah.
It was actually, he's a really cool guy, man, and you should watch it. What did you guys think of it? Did you like it?
I did like it. I did like it, although too much Celtic Rangers chat.
Yeah, Chris asked for that.
Yeah, I mean-
But yeah, go check that out if you haven't, and let me know what you think.
Bye.
Peace.